Hey folks, my name's Ed Trevors. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm an Anglican priest serving in the beautiful parish of St. Margaret of Scotland that sits on the ancestral and on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Gwe. We're going to talk about some shit today. I know, I probably should have warned you. I'm going to be using that word quite a bit throughout the course of this video. I promise I'm not using it as a curse word. I'm using it as a descriptor. So we're going to talk about shit today. See, there's a story that I heard long ago. One day my kids came home from school and they were both saying, I heard this word and I heard that word. And I thought, oh gosh, here we go. So they were hitting the swearing phase of their childhood. And so what I did is I went out and I looked up all the different origin stories about some of our favorite curse words. And the origin story that I like the best, and my our choir director here, she tells me that there's no way this is true, but I like this story, and I'm going, and what's that expression? Never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So the story that I heard about the origin of the word shit is this. They used to transport manure. And when they transported manure, they would dry it out because it became nice and light, and then they would put it onto ships. And like most things, they would put it in the hold of the ship. They would put it under decks to keep it secure, make sure that it didn't go anywhere, make sure it didn't bounce around, make sure it didn't fall off. Problem is that while they were out to sea, they would often face storms and they would get rain. And well, manure, once manure is dried out, once it gets wet, when it gets wet, it begins to re-emit methane gas. And so, as you would expect, the captain or whoever the supervising officer would be, he would send men into the hold of the ship to inspect the cargo. And they, of course, would be using a lantern. And what happens when a room filled with wet manure producing methane gas comes in contact with an open flame? So when they discovered that's what was going on with some of these ships, that these ships were being rocked by explosions from basically the manure being reactivated in the ship's hold, they began changing their policy. And the policy was we're still going to ship manure, but we are going to ship it on top of the deck, because if it gets wet up there, who cares? Methane goes up into the air. It won't cause us any big issues. And if it does, then we can just drop it overboard. And so they began stamping onto the sides of these big bundles of manure, SHIT, store high in transit. Now, I have no idea if me telling my kids the origin stories of my favorite curse words helped curb their enthusiasm for cussing. But I always love this story. And this week past, I was talking to a good friend of mine, and we were talking about our issues. We were talking about our personal issues, and we were talking about how we handle those things. And we were talking about how we notice others handling their issues and handling their triggers. And it occurred to me that the origin story of shit actually might be a really, really wonderful metaphor for our baggage, for the things that we carry, for the experiences that we've had, for the moments we've had, for the encounters that we've had, for those, whether it's traumatic or untraumatic, but for those things that we have that we maybe don't deal with, and what happens when those things that we haven't dealt with are reactivated. What happens when those things we haven't dealt with are issues, when our baggage, what happens when our shit isn't dealt with and we've got it buried down deep. We've got it stored away below decks. Right? It explodes. We find ourselves in places where we're doing really, really, where we're responding in completely disproportionate ways to a moment, to an experience, to an event. We're responding way out of line to something small, something that looking back, we would say, geez, I don't know. I can't even imagine why I responded that way. Well, it's because we've got other things going on. We've got other issues happening. We've experienced things that this experience, this event has reactivated. Something that we went through as a child, something that we went through as a young person, something that we went through that really, really tore our guts out. And all of a sudden we have this moment years later, after we've buried that way down deep. We have these moments years later where, it scratches that thing. It activates that thing. And we respond as though we are responding to that thing as opposed to responding to what is actually transpiring here in the here and now. We know that when we try to bury stuff, when we try to bury our pain, when we try to bury our sorrows, when we try to bury our trauma, when we try to bury our past, it has a tendency of exploding when we least expect it. So, like shit, there's a benefit in keeping all of this stuff on the surface. When we discover it, when we know it's there. I mean, sometimes these things are buried way down deep. We don't even know they're there. But when we know this stuff is there, being brave enough, being vulnerable enough to say, you know what? No. I'm going to keep this on the deck. I'm not going to bury this. I'm not going to hide this away anymore. I'm not going to try to store this someplace safe where it won't move around. I'm going to put it someplace where it's going to be in the way. Because if it's someplace that it's in the way, I'll know it's there. And when I know it's there, I can handle it. I can deal with it. I can learn to heal from it. My awareness that it's there allows me to understand my reactions and my responses better, and to grow in how I respond and react. Keeping it on the deck, even if it gets activated, even if that shit gets activated, keeping it on the deck prevents the explosion. Because it's right there in front of me. And whatever gases it happens to produce when it's reactivated by the moment I find myself in, it won't take the whole ship down with it. So my encouragement, what I hope for myself and my encouragement to you would be, don't be afraid of your shit. Don't try to bury your shit way down deep. Don't try to keep your shit below decks as you sail your way through this world. Keep it above deck. Keep it up there where you can see it. Keep it up there where you don't have to be afraid of it. Keep it there where you are aware of its presence, and you can deal with how it shifts and how it moves. You can deal with its weight, so that ultimately you get to where you need to be, and you're able to unload this cargo and say goodbye to it. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord's face be made to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord's countenance be lifted up to you. May you always know the peace of being in the Lord's presence. And I pray your shit doesn't take you down. I pray you're bold enough, willing enough to have your shit right out there in front of you, no matter how it smells, no matter how it looks, no matter how ugly it appears, no matter how distasteful it may be, because when it's in front of you, you can deal with it, and you don't have to worry about it exploding and taking your vessel down. Amen. Nemultus.